please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Nikkei, that one's up 0.75%, sitting fairly pretty, also aided by a mildly weaker yen.
While we're getting too fixated about the index, it's about individual stocks. Just look at FMCG and consumption stocks.
The multiplicity of offers coming in, and also looking at the need of the company, they've revised the offers.
Bank Nifty, we are almost up only about 36 points thereabout. Nifty is still about 35 points higher.
Oil front, we have had the largest current account deficit. That tends to bring pressure on the rupee.
It's sustainable at the moment, given that we've seen no change. I think we're looking for US 75, if not US $80 a barrel on Brent.
Revenue momentum, we are expecting it to be very strong in financial year 19 compared to FY 18. So this is going to on itself will help the margin to improve for us.
Key expectations are dollar revenue growth of 2.5%, constant currency revenue growth of 1 to 1.2%.
Gross NPA in absolute value has increased by 14%, while net NPA in absolute value has increased by 26%.
Okay, typical Thursday, the weekly options expiry on Bank Nifty, and that index is right now down 6.65 points. The Nifty also has been in a very narrow band. I mean, it's the narrowest band that we have seen for a really long time now. 10,550 has been the equilibrium. Let's see if something changes in last hour. This is closing well. I'm Anuj with Ms. Surabhi. Hi, Surabhi. Good afternoon.
Hi. Good afternoon, Anuj. Absolutely. You know, I was just thinking today the market has digested a fair amount of news because oil is now above 74. I mean, we've seen those highs come through as well. There's been so much of news, this divergence on IndusInd Bank. I mean, a lot of news points that potentially could have been taken as negative. But as of now, the market is holding. So what do you make of this?
I think there are 2 or 3 points here. I think this market's become a bit micro, Surabhi. Today's been all about individual stock. And today, like Nalco, Hindalco, Jindal Steel, Tata Steel, that play has happened really. Oil has seen a complete play. HPBP, IOC on the way down, ONGC, etc. on the way up. So today's been just that micro market where you have to really drill it down to just individual stocks and play over there. IndusInd normally does that. It rallies ahead of numbers. On the day of numbers, it's a bit soft. Next morning, normally there are upgrades and the stock rallies. So, that's also displayed the typical pattern. And the weekly options expiry, 25,100 was the equilibrium because 25,200 call and 25,000 put. Both had highest open interest. Now, both are almost next to zero. So, the put writers, call writers have made their money. So, perhaps at 3 p.m. you see a bit of a move, if at all. But overall, this day doesn't surprise me. But yeah, I mean, I think the bullish bad news, the market could have gone down today, especially after yesterday. But it's still holding on in the green, and 10,550 is still holding, which I think is good news for the bulls.
Okay, absolutely. Right now, it's bulls in control in the equity markets, though in the bond markets, the yields are rising.
In this last hour of trade, Ashwani Gujral and Mitesh Thakkar now join us with closing strategies. Good afternoon. Ashwani, it's been all about metals today. Some of them have been, of course, your intraday calls as well. But your thoughts on the overall market action and any thoughts for last hour?
See, we are sideways, and Bank Nifty is at the lower end of its range, while the Nifty is in the middle of the range because it has several outperformers. So far, it's a low volatility type of action, so I don't think there is anything really conclusive. But Nifty's range for the day is extremely narrow, and this sort of a narrow range indicates that we are very close to the market giving you a trending move maybe in the next few days. So that we have to be ready for, because 40-point range, 35-point range on Nifty often does not sustain. Now, with my limited knowledge, what I can say about the last hour is that the Bank Nifty had several reasons to collapse today, and it spent all day hanging around the lower end of the range. So a sort of short covering should not be out of question. But as you say that, maybe the calls and puts are done for the day. If I have to take position on one side, I would take a long position, because all day long the market could have broken down IndusInd, oil, this, that, but it didn't. So maybe last half hour there is some sort of short covering. Having said that, Yes Bank is a buy with a stop of 314, target of 328. Chambal Fertilizer is a buy with a stop of 185, target of 201. And IOC is a sell with a stop of 163, target of 150.
Yeah, fertilizers making a bit of a move. Chambal, RCF, a couple of other names also are moving higher. And one of them is, of course, Ashwani's call. Mitesh, good afternoon. How have you read today's trading action? Very range bound, but gains pretty much intact.
Yeah, I think it's been intact, but now is the time when the first signs of crack are happening on the indicator chart. So I think I'm slightly more cautious on long side. I think we've reduced our long exposure, taken profits on the long positions on individual stocks as yet. And I think as we, in case if we hit 10,600 again, possibly tomorrow or day after, I think those levels should attract some significant supply. So I think we are in for that breather. I think it's been a very quiet market for the last 3 sessions actually, barring that one correction which came in the between. But otherwise, it looks like a market which will just consolidate broadly between 10,600 to about 10,470. And now I think I will be more aggressive on booking profits. For the time being, on the stock side, I have one buy and one sell call. Buy is on Steel Authority. Clearly metals are in the pack and the ferrous metals have joined the rally. So sale is a buy with a stop at 78. Look for targets of 86. And Sun Pharma is a sell with a stop at 513. Look for declines to 494.
Okay, fertilizer really. Just pull out the intraday chart of GNFC and the price and volume move on that stock. Of course, Ashwani is recommending Chambal fertilizer, but GNFC is the stock which is now surging almost 4.5% higher is what we have on GNFC at this point in time. SP Tulsian of sptulsian.com and Abhimanyu Sofat of IIFL with us. Good afternoon. Ms. Tulsian, your thoughts on GNFC? Big surge right now happening on the stock.
See, GNFC is going to show bumper results for Q4 for the simple reason. In fact, I've said that earlier also about maybe a week to 10 days back because of the TDI production which they are making, the only producer in India. And earlier they were exporting to about 6 countries. Now they are exporting to more than 40-45 countries. And in fact, if you see the price surge which they have taken from 15th January of about 8-9% is seen continuously happening now naturally at a low pace because of the one of the BASF plant has seen the closure in Louisiana, US because of the force majeure, and that has seen the huge demand ramping up for TDI world over, which is met by GNFC. And as I said that they are the only producer in India because of the the entire country's requirement of TDI is met by GNFC, and apart from that they are exporting to about 45 countries, which earlier they were making it to 6 countries. So Q4 results are seen to be bumper. Same thing is going to be seen with the Q1 numbers also. And in fact, when the stock corrected below 400 rupees in the last week, at that time also we have initiated a buy call, and on air I have given all these data points at that time also that this is looking an extremely positive. Though we have been selective positive view on the fertilizer stocks, but in particularly in reference to GNFC, one should not get confused that the GNFC is rising because of the fertilizer presence in this one. Though no doubt that fertilizer space is doing quite well, but they have other chemicals also, maybe like malic acid and all sort of things which are also doing quite well. So it is more because of the chemical sector which is seen driving this share prices rather than fertilizer.
Okay, in fact, just put out GSFC as well. There's of course the connection between GNFC and GSFC. Ms. Tulsian, you have a view on GSFC as well? That's also moving to the high point right now.
See, again, coming on GSFC, we have been keeping extremely positive on complex fertilizer. And if you recall, I have in fact in the last couple of months have selected 2 stocks. One is GSFC and Coromandel. Second one is Coromandel International, having presence in the complex fertilizer. But come on the GSFC also, they have equal presence in the caprolactam also, which is again a chemical or non-fertilizer segments. And caprolactam is again doing quite well. So they are firing on both cylinders. Their complex fertilizer is doing extremely well because GNFC, which we have discussed a while back, is making only urea. They are not into complex fertilizer, but GSFC is making complex fertilizer, and there they have advantage. In fact, new varieties of complex fertilizer got added, but they have the advantage of caprolactam, which is seen doing quite well. So they have the dual advantage of the complex fertilizer and GSFC. And in fact, amongst the fertilizer space, since we are referring now for the fertilizer space, we have 2 prime picks among that space. One is Coromandel International and second is GSFC.
Okay, all right. Thanks for explaining that, Mr. Tulsian. What a move on both of these stocks, GSFC and GNFC, and of course other names like Chambal that are up and about. We also have Abhimanyu so far with us, and as we go to him, there are more stocks, by the way, on the move, whether you're looking at something like a Radico or Biocon. Biocon, by the way, has also seen a big spike, so lots of stocks moving around. Abhimanyu, let me actually ask you about these spirit stocks, because they've been such a flavor in the market, right? What is your thought now after this kind of price appreciation? Would you buy, let's say, a Radico or a USL afresh?
Yeah, so I think so what's happening is clearly, I think so consumption as a theme seems to be doing good right now, and especially the urban consumption. So going forward, I think so since these businesses have quite stickiness in terms of growth, these could be looked at even at this valuation also. See, whatever has happened in terms of earlier there was a highway ban or whatever government action have happened, demonetization, GST, you know, all those things being done, the consumer is coming back, and from that perspective, I think so still there is some upstream as earnings are likely to improve going forward for these companies. In case of United Spirits, I think so the restructuring of operations would really lead to a better performance on the bottom line going forward as well.
Stock of the moment, and perhaps this month really, Nalco. Once again, just pull out the intraday chart on that one, almost approaching 90 now. Mr. Sen, I remember I was having this conversation with you, is it good for more? I think it was at 70 something at that point. Now at 89, you reckon it's, at least in the near term, there's enough momentum, even if it fizzles out in the long term?
See, I think we need to define near terms. If we mean near term as less than a week, then probably yes, 90 to 92 is seen to be the level where one should really, the stock should take some pause, because having risen by about 30%, generally, you know, this one also takes us a pause. But looking to the situation prevailing on the Latin American front, closure in the Brazil unit of the alumina production, you know, probably company may continue to have some advantage going forward, and the level of about 9,900 can be looked into if we have a 3 months horizon.
Okay, actually, I want to ask Mitesh about this as well. Mitesh, we've discussed some of the stocks earlier. Sale is anyway your, I think, buy call for the last hour. But beyond that, if you're looking at Nalco, I mean, 30-35% up move in a month, is it still good for a long trade, or do you think it's a bit too crowded maybe?
I think, see, very clearly the momentum is there. The stock will make higher level, will hit higher levels from here. The only problem is that if you're taking a long trade now, I think it might be slightly wrong level to enter. It's up about 11-12% today. Let it cool off. I think the last highs were around 96. So that's the intermediate target. That was in November 17. I think that's the minimum I'm expecting the stock to do. Eventually break beyond that and head towards 105 is what I think the stock will do. But entering now may not be a good thing, because your stop loss is way beyond at about 83 odd levels. So maybe, you know, let it cool up by about 3.5, 4 points. Maybe tomorrow, day after tomorrow, when you get that entry opportunity, I think that's a good level to enter. Otherwise, if you miss the boat, then you miss the boat.
Okay. Yeah, 89.60 now on that stock. Ashwini, I know you have to go on our sister channel Avaz. So before that, I just wanted your thoughts on Balrampur Chini. It was your first call in the morning as well. I think it's met your target was, I think, 65, if I'm not wrong. But for positional traders, what's the view here? It's been a one-way slide now.
Well, it's now in a clear bear market. I think it will stop around the 45-50 zone. So I don't think people are going to get any sort of exit. It may have 1 or 2 days of upside, but after that you see how the falls are happening, because these are all the people who are long and who are now cutting position. So I think it will get back to that 45-50 zone.
Okay, fair point, Ashwini. We'll come back to you, of course. Mr. Tulsian, your thoughts on Balrampur Chini? I remember when, you know, that one day when we had that rally and you said it's perhaps meaningless. But is the cycle now completely over, and are we now headed back towards a sub-40 kind of zone on Balrampur Chini?
See, I think that Balrampur Chini is seen more to be a victim of the F&O presence. Sugar stock, the only sugar stock which has its presence in F&O is Balrampur Chini, and the kind of technical positions, you know, which we have seen. I'm not saying that I'm keeping a positive view on fundamentally on the sugar stocks, but if you really take a call going forward, I don't think that you have much weakness seen on the sugar stocks, mainly based on the UP sugar mill, because I've been maintaining this view that if 2 million of the quantity which is certain to go away from the country, there is, we'll see the prices stabilizing. It will not see the prices falling further, maybe below 29 rupees in UP. I'm not referring in Maharashtra. Number one. Number two, if you really take a call going forward, once the crushing season stops, which will start happening maybe in the next 1 week in Maharashtra and Karnataka, and maybe by month end or from maybe first week of May in UP also, will also see the support to the sugar prices. But coming specifically on Balrampur Chini, I don't think that the stock has any risk of going below maybe 58 to 60 rupees, because this is seen to be bottom, because technical positions cannot take the shares beyond a level which is seen at 58, 60, because major long positions seen got liquidated, and any kind of, in fact, what has happened when the government allowed 55 rupees as subsidy for sugarcane, sugarcane payment, at that time lot of position got built up in the Balrampur Chini. And if you recall, maybe at that time, a lot of buy calls were initiated, initiating buy call, it moved up by 12, 13%, 14% in a couple of days. And in fact, those long positions are seen getting liquidated. And I don't think that stock can really fall below 58 rupees, even by taking these technical positions and fundamental view on the sugar sectors.
Okay, well, that's commodities for you, right? Tanuj, I guess this is on its down cycle. The other one, I'm looking at Hindalco. I mean, these are huge stocks. There's 10% up move on Hindalco. We've discussed Nalco already. Yeah. And I guess that's what tells us that the ferocity of a commodity cycle, when the going is in your favor, then things just go in one direction.
Exactly, and that's the way to play commodities. If you are in an upswing and you enter, you put a bit of a stop. If that trade doesn't work for you, so be it. But if it works wonder for you. And you look at say something like a JSW Steel, for example, or of course Nalco all through this month. Hindalco also all through this month, though Hindalco has its problems as well. But yeah, this is a big buzzing space, and right now massive run is what we're seeing sort of clearly.
Mid caps are really, really up and about, but large caps are not behind. I mean, there's more momentum, by the way, on an Ultratech Cement. We'll talk more about that space in just a bit. Cement generally, it's been just strong after the numbers from ACC. Aisha Motors is now beginning to stir back to life. Ultratech is at the high point of the day. So some of the large cap stocks, of course, on the move as well. Sandeep Wagle is with us. Good afternoon, Sandeep. What trades are you going with?
Afternoon, Surabhi. I would go with a buy in a Tata Elxsi, stop loss of 1089, target 1125, and a buy in a Biocon, stop loss 627, target 651.
Okay, Sandeep, thanks a lot for those trading ideas. Well, somewhere around this time, something starts to happen with a stock like CG Power. It's just some big buying and with big price and volume. In fact, a lot of stocks which are seeing quite a bit of momentum right now. Just pull out that stock, of course, CG Power intraday, and that stock right now breaking out. Just look at that move on that stock. Cummins as well, that stock right now is seeing highs of the day. Just pull out that stock. That also is making a bit of a breakout. V-Guard as well making a bit of a move. So a lot of these stocks running up quite a bit. Mr. Tulsian, thoughts on either Cummins? I know you are positive on CG Power and in the past as well, but any other stock that looks interesting in this space?
So CG Power is seen to be in accumulation for maybe last about 1 month, and in fact similar pattern we have seen about 3-4 months back, or maybe I would say that about 6 months back. And as I have said earlier also, that all the monetizations of their overseas units seem to be over, except the Indonesian unit, because that has turned around, and that's why they are not going for monetization of that. And in fact, apart from the significant presence and very good business on the domestic front, which is the main, now the only business of the company, the T&D business is doing extremely well. Now company is taking a plunge into the railways. They have already received an order of about 110 crore from railways. The entire money, whatever units they have sold abroad, will get received now, except for in 3 countries, I think Hungary, Poland, and maybe in other geography they have to monetize, for which they may fetch about 400 crore. So taking all this into consideration, company on net off basis, once they receive the entire amount, will become debt free and maybe cash surplus. And if you take the call, compare it with ABB or Siemens, I'm not forgetting the MNC status of ABB Siemens, but this is the stock is seen to be quite cheap on a sales to market cap ratio of less than 1 against other 2 companies ruling at 5 to 6. So this is seen an excellent stocks coming on Cummins. Again, Cummins is also amongst having the very good pedigree and excellent presence can also be seen, can also get considered in this space as well.
Okay, Mr. Tulsian, before we let you go today, just one more stock from a complicated space. Rain Industries, this calcined pet coke play. The reason I'm asking is that this was, of course, a big stock of 2017. It's showing some traction in trade today. I mean, the fundamentals, is there anything fresh? What would your view be now?
See, I don't think that there is any complication in the stock. The business model is very clear. Calcined petroleum coke is being made. There is only other listed company, that is Goa Carbon. And calcined petroleum coke is used largely by the aluminium industry. And if aluminium industry is doing so well, obviously they will be having the advantage. If you really take both the companies, first in Rain Industries, they have other business of, other vertical of cement business also, which is very small. But they have the main business of CPC, calcined petroleum coke. And the availability of the green petroleum coke, which is a raw material, is also seen to be in abundance. So Goa Carbon and Rain Industries both are seen to be doing well. Maybe Goa Carbon results were not to the mark for Q4, and that's why because of the maintenance shutdown. And in fact, all their three plants are doing quite well. I'm referring for Goa Carbon at their Bilaspur, at Visakhapatnam and at Goa. Similar is the case with Rain Industries. They have the overseas presence also, plus they have the presence in India. So they cater to both that means aluminium producer in India as well as abroad, and seem to be doing quite well. So taking that into account, but both are seen to be quite volatile and ruling at a higher end. So don't expect much upside from here, but the business model is really quite expensive, and look for the dip to buy into the stock, because as I said, the other vertical of Rain Industries, that is cement, is also doing reasonably well.
Okay, Mr. Tulsian, we let you go on that note. Thanks a lot for joining us today. Let's invite our Alpha Manager for the day, then Harshad Patwardhan, CIO Equities at Edelweiss Mutual Fund, is with us. Harshad, good afternoon. Good talking to you, actually, on the show.
Hi, good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Your thoughts on the kind of volatility that we have seen, the Feb and March month, we saw big downtake. April, of course, has been a good month. How are you approaching the market from here on?
So I think 2017 really spoiled us in terms of being very, very low volatility. I think what we are seeing now is more normal. So I think you should expect over the next 12-14 months the volatility to actually continue. So yeah, I think investors as well as fund managers, everybody has to get used to it.
Harshad, good afternoon. I've been looking through some of the details of the mid-cap fund and the large-cap mid-cap fund as well. And you have some interesting themes, so I'm straight away going to cut to the chase. The one stock that really caught my eye was Indian hotels, given how excited the market has gotten with this space after the Lemon Tree listing. Do you think this is a story for the long haul? How do you view it? Are you looking to add positions? What's the sense on hospitality?
So, Surabhi, as you know, I can't really talk on stocks.
The
but
sector,
yes,
the theme.
This industry, we have been positive for a while, and we have been expecting the occupancy rates to really rise. That has played out nicely over the last 2 to 3 quarters, and the occupancy rates now are touching almost 80%. And we have seen it in the past in the hotel cycle, that when the occupancy rates start moving to those levels, the pricing power really comes back to the hotel industry, and that's exactly what we are going through now, and we expect that to continue, for a couple of more years.
Okay, just stay on, Harshad. We have lots more questions for you. Just getting back to the market, things are really hot out here. I mean, some of the stocks we've already discussed are putting on more momentum. For instance, Radico Khaitan. Abhimanyu, I want to get your thoughts on the cement space, because we've seen the first set of numbers come out there. What would the view be on ACC? Anything else you like?
Yeah, so we are not that positive on ACC going forward, because we believe that there is not much capacity addition that is likely to happen. The growth rate in the company is likely to be just 5% going forward. Rather, we would like to go with something which is like a Dalmia Bharat, where valuations still look attractive to us. Growth opportunity looks pretty decent to us. And if there is some closure on the Binani deal, that would even lead to further upside in this particular sector. So more on sectors such as Ramco Cement as well as Binani acquisition leading to better valuation for Dalmia. So those are the kind of things that we are looking at right now in the cement space.
Okay, Abhimanyu, thanks a lot for your time today. Harshad, getting back to some of the big themes where you have made a lot of money, tires is also quite interesting, right? I mean, you have Apollo Tires, MRF, basically the big ones. You reckon these stocks are good for more, considering the kind of run-up that we have seen here?
We continue to be positive on this particular sector also, because we believe that these stocks, these businesses continue to have good pricing power. If you look at the market structure, it allows the industry to raise prices in case the raw material costs go up. And the demand side is buoyant. As you know, the Chinese tire imports have reduced quite significantly. So therefore, we continue to be positive on the sector.
Okay. Now, Harshad, obviously, you are really top-up loaded on NBFCs and financials and several of the funds that you manage, particularly the mid-cap fund. And their things are interesting because you have lots of names across the board, from a Gru Finance to a Shriram Transport Finance. What's the view? Because the contrarians would talk about bond yields rising, the constant overhang of this LAP issue with some of the housing finance companies. Where does your conviction lie in NBFCs?
So, you're right. NBFCs in general have seen lots of tailwind over the last, couple of years, 2-3 years, I would say. And from here on, if you look at the valuations, one has to be very, very selective. And one has to really know beforehand which ones you are buying to play the cycle and which ones are, for the long haul, more like structural storage. So if you look at our portfolios, for example, our fact sheet, you will find a combination of the two.
Okay, I wish you could talk about stocks because I wanted to know what next with a stock like Jubilant Foodwork. And of course, you can explain it via the theme, but that's been, of course, a big money spinner for you.
Yes, I will skip talking about stocks. Sorry.
Yeah, but in terms of themes, Harshad, this consumption theme, at some point the valuation will play a part, right? I mean, we're talking about stocks trading at 60, 70, 80 times, in certain cases 100 times.
You're right, valuation is important, but the way we look at valuations is not really look at next 1 year forward price to earning ratio. The way we look at it is particularly for structural themes where we continue sustained growth over long periods of time. I think you have to take that into account. We have seen, if you look at the history for last 20-25 years, you have seen stocks which have always appeared expensive but continue to outperform because the earnings growth momentum had stayed with certain businesses for 10, 20, 25 years. So we don't really look at only PE and conclude whether it is cheap or expensive. You have to look at whether that earnings growth is sustainable over long periods of time. For more cyclical stocks on the consumption space, you have to basically first ask yourself, where are you in the cycle? Because if you are early part of an up cycle, the valuation is bound to look expensive. So we look at valuation in the context of these two questions: sustainability of earnings growth and where we are in the cycle.
Where are we in the cycle, Harshad, specifically with respect to consumption? And maybe you can break this answer up in terms of discretionary, staples, because all kinds of stocks, anything which can be a quasi-urban consumption play is also rallying in the market.
So I would say for more FMCG kind of stocks, I would say that it's a cyclical upturn that we are trying to play. Whereas on the consumer durable side, on the discretionary side, we are essentially looking at compounding of earnings growth over long periods of time. We believe there are many sub-segments of this theme where you will see market size multiplying by a factor over the next 5-10 years.
Okay, Harshad, just stay on with us. It's 3 p.m. So just want to address the weekly options expiry and if there's any move. It looks like, one of those expiries where the market, at least on the bank nifty, doesn't make any move. And, just want to bring the premiums down to complete zero, at least on 25,200 call and 25,000 put. I reckon actually that would have already happened by now. Just look, it's 0.85 and 0.9 thereabouts. So obviously that has happened now. 25,100 is where we have a bit of an equilibrium, but suffice to say that there's no as such a weekly expiry move. Though on the mid-cap index, there's been massive buying, and mid-cap index, mid-cap stocks doing rather well today. Ashwani, for all these metal plays, is there a BTSG, or you think you have to book profit here with 10%, 8%, these kind of rallies?
See, they did not start rallying today. So if you've been in something and that's up 35, 40%, today is not the day to buy at least. What you can do is maybe hold on and see how far these things go. But anything, particularly these large stocks, when they are up 8 to 10%, short-term traders should take profits.
Okay. Well, just about at 3 p.m. Let's get in Mitesh as well. Mitesh, your thoughts on things so far and how you'd look at the last half hour?
So, honestly, I think, it's been such a quiet day that I don't even expect the Bank Nifty expiry to move much, to move the market much. The Bank Nifty, as I said, I think the key move will happen if we start getting below 25,000. So, it may not happen today. But in case over the next few days, if we start doing that, then I think I would be slightly more worried on the banking index, and that could pull the Nifty down towards the lower end of the range. So I think that's the only move which can happen. The PSU banking lot, the charts are slightly weak, but otherwise I think, individual stock specific basis, we are trading with more of long buys, mild short positions on the PSU banking lot.
Okay, let's talk about some more sectors then, Harsha. Again, looking at your fund, what's interesting is NBFCs, you have 14.3% in the mid-cap fund. Within NBFCs, if you could drill it down to subsectors, what would you be bullish on?
So at this stage, if you look at our fact sheet, we are reasonably positive on auto financing companies, and from a long-term perspective, we are positive on select housing finance companies as well.
Okay, fair enough. Let me just extrapolate that question then to banks, because I do see a couple of names like ICICI Bank creeping up on the list. So are you at all looking to play for value where stocks haven't moved, or is it sort of the market consensus, stick to private financials?
So within banks, we have always been very positive on private sector banks, but within private sector banks, our overweight, if you analyze the fact sheet properly, you will realize that retail private sector banks is the place where we have been overweight for a long time, and that positioning continues.
Yeah, so that includes a couple of the new kids on the block, like RBL Bank, etc. Some of the very new names, including I think Bandhan Bank, which is interesting. Now, from there, the other position that I kind of noticed in the mid-cap fund, you have a 7% exposure to pharma, which is interesting because that wouldn't be a top-down sectoral call. So what's the rationale there?
So, pharma, as you know, there are different business models within pharma. So, some of the business models we do like, but what we do not like is the traditional Indian pharma model, which is selling generics into US. That is something that we are not yet positive on.
All right, Harsha, thanks a lot. It was good talking to you, and I hope that we talk more often in the future. That's the
thanks
view
a lot
from Edelweiss Mutual Fund. The market, of course, still in the green, and the Bank Nifty, well, 25,114. The Nifty almost at the high point, 10,560. The mid-cap index is the one where you've seen real big rally today.